Welcome, gamers, to Basement Arcade Pause Menu, the show where we hit pause, sit back, and just chill. I am your host, Ben Magnet, and today on the show, I have an extraordinary person who they are not only a video game content creator, they are also a retro video game collector, and they also have what I consider to be a dream job back as a child, a video game store employee. Please welcome to the show, Eli, aka Norman Bates Jr. Eli, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm great. I'm coming in hot after a shift at my job, so I'm feeling good. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being on the show. So, Eli, we do have a set topic today, and I'm really glad that you agreed to answer a complete total stranger, me, to come on a random podcast. But before we get into that, if it's all right with you, I would like to know a little bit more about you. And with every new guest I have on the show, I always ask them the same question. How did you get into video games?
Oh my gosh, what a funny and loaded question. So video games were actually a big no-no in my house. Me and my siblings were homeschooled. We're very Catholic. I'm still practicing. But, you know, my childhood and my siblings' childhood was kind of the epitome of like, Pokemon cards are Satan. Video games are bad for you. So there was like a lot. And so God bless my mother. She didn't believe all of that. But because all of her friends did, it was a lot easier for her to not catch flack. And so she was like, you guys are not doing this. But funny enough, our childhood console was a Sega Dreamcast. Nobody can remember how they got it. I think that the God's honest truth is my mom saw on clearance and was like, you know what? They can have that, and probably bought it for us. So that was our first console. I never realized how weird that was until I got older and people were like, the what? But I was a Sega kid.
Me too.
We had Sega's so good.
Proud Sega. I mean, I might be wearing a Mario shirt right now, but you can't really see. But there's essentially like a little shrine to Sonic the Hedgehog that's just off camera. Yes,
that's amazing. Yes, I'm happy I'm with a fellow Sega kid because I think there's not a lot of us out there. But yeah, I had my Dreamcast. We had Gauntlet Dark Legacy, or it might have just been Gauntlet Legends. I always get that in the PS2 title mixed up. Fur Fighters, Looney Tunes Space Racers, San Francisco Rush, Crazy Taxi. We had one of the Sonic Adventure games. So we had the basics. When I was really little, my brother would unplug a controller and give it to me and tell me I was the enemy. Which I think is a classic sibling move, but I really believed him and I really thought I was doing a good job.
So every time he died to an enemy, would you be like,
I won.
Face?
Yeah, it would be like I'm winning. So, and you know what? He was not always very good. So I felt like I won a lot.
Wow, that is, oh my, you know what? I've heard a few people tell me that story, and I'm sitting there going, I've never done that to my little brother. When my parents when they finally did buy us video games, we had to extra beg them or extra convince them to buy a single player game. They always wanted to get us 2-player games, but they didn't realize they also need to buy a second controller.
Yeah, very true. Very true. The struggle is real. We had a lot of third-party controllers. We didn't have a lot of first-party Dreamcast stuff. It was always third-party stuff.
Oh, preach it, my sibling in video games, please.
My parents were like, "Yeah, you're gonna get the discount stuff." And then after that, like my brother got a PS2, and my cousins had a PS2, and we played a few games, but you know, we weren't allowed to have a lot of games. And from there, I kind of switched to PC gaming because I played Knights of the Old Republic. That's the first video game I ever beat. That's what I consider my first adult video game. It's still one of my favorite games. I love mystery point and clicks. My sister and I played a lot of Nancy Drew games. They're amazing. And then I got introduced to The Sims. And I've sunk a lot of money into The Sims, and I'm still a hardcore Sims player to this day. But as soon as I turned 11, I was like, I want my own laptop. I want to be able to game. I want all of these things. And I mowed lawns for one summer. And I saved up to buy myself the crappiest laptop in the world. And from there, I was like, I begged my brother to teach me emulation. And that's actually kind of how I ended up finding Silent Hill. I share the story, but if you got for context, I'm a huge Silent Hill fan. I'm a nut. I should probably be locked up for how much I love Silent Hill. But I Googled scariest games, and Silent Hill spoke to me, and I played it on my crappy laptop, and from there it was history. But that's kind of my rough start with video games, to be honest. It was not glamorous. It was very shoehorned in, and very much you get 30 minutes a day. And if you watch your siblings play it, that's your 30 minutes.
Whoa. Even if you watch them play?
Yep.
I'm actually now very happy my parents gave me an hour. And watching our sibling because it was just my brother and I growing up. Mm-hmm. And for us, it was an hour each. And we had to go set the time. My parents were set the timer first.
We had one of those wind-up timers. I don't know if you had one. You wound it to a certain hour.
We didn't wind it up. We had to go to the stove because our stove had an automatic, or it didn't have an automatic timer, but we set a timer on the stove. Yeah. And the thing is, we had to set the timer first, then go turn the game.
Sprint back and be I gotta get to the game, or be no. The first 2 minutes were me setting it up. I swear.
Or it's we actually had to convince our parents to, because there was one time we were playing Crash Bandicoot 3, and that game for some you could skip the opening cutscene, but for some reason, whenever we would push the start button, it wasn't skipping the cutscene. When we got to the first opening menu, it says press start. It worked, but getting to that cutscene would not go through. So we're just
no.
And that was eating up 5 minutes. So we had to convince our parents to let us start our timer when we actually hit start on the game.
That's a tough one. Tough one.
The joys of growing up in the 90s in elementary school when you finally get video games. And then eventually, certain days, our parents forgo or went the timer.
It was sick days, or maybe a special occasion, or they wanted us out of their hair.
It was mostly weekend, summer vacation. They didn't let us do the timer, but sick days, my mom was very much, if you're well enough to play video games, you're well enough to go to school.
Yeah, my mom had some of that mentality, which is funny because we were homeschooled as kids. So I don't really know how we went through that one, because it's you're a teacher too, and I don't know, you're a mom teacher. It's weird.
It's that meme where the person's doing all the math in their head and they're just wait a minute. It's
absolutely.
You hear the X-Files theme play off in the distance. It's but this is my school, and it's also
what's happening? What am I doing?
Yeah. But one thing I must say, I've never met your parents, but I love your mom for being supportive, even though she sounds like she wasn't 100% supportive. What I mean is she didn't think that Pokemon was the devil or Satan or anything.
That's kind of funny. At this point, she's she laughs at a lot of the stuff that happened, but she was just it's too much of a headache to figure this out. Just go outside and do something normal.
Just to touch grass.
Yeah, literally. I don't know, just go do something normal. Which, granted, we had a great childhood otherwise, and compared to other people, we were pretty lucky.
I 100% agree on that. Even though I definitely wasn't there, because my childhood wasn't more of Pokemon is evil. It was just don't play games too long. Go touch grass as well. It was you can play games. Outside. Yeah, it's the sun went down. Okay, now you can come inside and play the games. Oh, the sun up. Go outside. There's grass. Go play.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, I just kind of wish that the term "touch grass" existed back then. It's just so funny to me.
I know it would have been very fitting.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, so of course, like I said earlier, we do have a topic for the show, and one day, I don't know how exactly I found you on Twitter. I must have just been scrolling one day and one of your tweets popped up, but it was a tweet and it was a video of one of your TikToks that actually hit me to my core. And it was when you were essentially explaining on why you were selling some higher end things in your collection, because both you and I, even though I assume we both have full-time jobs, there are times where us game collectors have to do what used to be the unthinkable and sell some stuff in our games to make ends meet. In the past few months, me personally, I've actually had to sell some games to help pay for bills, to help get ready for a trip to Hawaii, to do all sorts of things. And I wanted to have you on and talk to you about that. Because of course, every single person out there, every game collector out there has different criteria for when they need to look at their collection, do some culling. But I wanted to get more insight into that. So when you need to sell a game, what do you have like a step-by-step process on what games you are willing to sell? And what are the rules for games that you are never going to get rid of, no matter how deep into debt you are in?
So it's interesting because I have a really good perspective on this for multiple reasons. One, I have my own perspective, and then two, working at a retro game store, I have the perspective of a lot of people who have come into our store to sell things, and it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So for me, as a lot of you don't know, I'm a medically complex person. That's the term that I use because at this point I have so many diagnoses that it's hard to just like read the laundry list of them. But I am legally disabled. I don't qualify for disability in the state of Virginia, unfortunately, so I can't get any support there. I know. And I live in
wait, hold up. I think that's west. East is that way.
Yeah, we have to go there. Yeah, there we go. And I also live in one of the most expensive places in the country. Not because I want to, but because I was born here, okay? So there's a lot of times where bills come up. And for me, a lot of them are medical bills, even with insurance. It could be a few $100s a month on top of my regular expenses. So I am faced with this a lot. I'm more recently faced with it because I'm actually moving as well. And I'm trying to save up $5,000. So I'll tell you exactly a game that I got rid of that a lot of people would probably be like, why would you do that? I don't know how familiar you are with PlayStation 2 era horror games.
What I'm getting there. And when I say I'm getting there, like the first PlayStation 2 horror game, essentially the first horror game I ever played was Resident Evil 4. Like horror games, that's not really a genre that I'm really into. I mean, if you go to like the main FakeNerd, if you go into the main FakeNerd podcast channel and look to the regular Basement Arcade Let's Play, and every October, my co-hosts Ryan and Sparks, they love scaring the ever-loving crap out of me by having me play spooky games every October. So, yay.
I'm here to add fuel to their fire if they ever need suggestions. No offense to you, but
let's just say that they're forcing me to do an entire run of Dead Space, and we're going to start Inside Baseball. We're going to start recording that very soon. I'm not looking forward to it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I believe in you, if that's any consolation.
That is. I appreciate that.
Yes. So in PlayStation 2 horror, there are a lot of like holy grails and very expensive games. One of them is Kuon. It is a Japanese horror game that came out from Software, the people who made Dark Souls.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so they made a horror game. I don't want to say not a lot of people know about it because if you search one of the most expensive PS2 games, that game is there. But it is something that people don't know about, and that game, I don't know, maybe worth between $600 and $800.
Oh, wow.
It's very hard to get. It's one of the rarer titles, and I sold my copy because I had traded towards it. So part of it was because I had used a lot of trade credit towards it. I also didn't really like it. I played through all of it. I didn't really care for it. And when I had got it, it was because it was more of an opportunity and less so because I really wanted it. So I knew that I wouldn't have a hard time parting with it. And when I was going through my games, I was just like, yeah, this game. It wasn't the copy I played. I borrowed a copy from a friend. I didn't really like the game. And I'm not going to stare at something that's worth $600 to $800 and not sell it. However, a game that I have, I was going to get up and get it, but I'm really too lazy. It's back there.
It's somewhere over there.
It's also a rare game. It's a PS2 horror game. It's called Rule of Rose. And that game is probably between $600 and $700. Again, I don't know. I'm not fully a price encyclopedia. That is a game I'll never get rid of. One of the scarier hospital stays that I had was last year. There was an infection they didn't know I had, and it had gone septic, and I was in the hospital for almost a week, and it was a lot. It was very traumatizing. It was hard to come out of. I went down to North Carolina for an appointment, and that ended up in a hospital stay because it was like, we need to get you in here and we need to take care of you.
Oh my God.
So when I got back from that, my partner had a gift for me, and he's like, what do you think it is? And I had no idea because it's like one of those things you'd never guess somebody would buy for you. But it is a game I have been wanting for forever. And when I opened it, like, I was like shaking. I couldn't believe it. So there's such a strong memory behind that. It's the copy that I played. It's one of my favorite games. It's one of the most unique horror experiences out there. And, even though, that and Quan are pretty similar in price point, I could never get rid of it because I am so attached to it. And I think sentimentality, I think if you've like played and experienced a game, those are really big ones. For me, it's not really about rarity. It's about how much I really care about something, because I've had a lot of rare stuff in my collection. I've sold a lot of rare stuff. It comes and it goes. But I'm very attached to the things that I own. I think another example of something that I have, I know a lot of people don't like video game grading. I am not super pro video game grading, but at CGC for $40, you can get something validated, put in a UV protected case, and you don't have to spend a bunch of money on an acrylic case. So, that's my cheap budget hack. If you want to preserve a game, you just send it and get it graded. But I have a sealed first edition copy of Silent Hill 1. Ooh. And that is one of my pride and joys. And I'm sure that's worth a pretty penny. But it's just my baby. It's my favorite game. It's the game that I love. And to have something that is such a huge symbol of my love for gaming and for art and for so many things immortalized, I could never imagine parting ways with it. Yeah, even like to me, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's the one game that they could pry from your cold dead hands.
Literally. Even that is just as special to me as the open copy that I have played. So yeah. I recently got rid of some of my Silent Hill stuff because in my collection, I like to have every single game and then every single port of every single game. But I recently sold the spare ports that I had because I was like, I'm not playing them and I need to get ready to move. And even though it was really hard, it was still one of those things where it's like, well, I still have the copies that I love. I still have the copies that I've all beat. At the end of the day, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you mentioned sentimentality because I definitely went through that myself when I was selling games. But I actually did sell games that I was super sentimental with. But not only did I sell them, I sold them knowing that I had other ways to play them as well. 2 games that I used to own in my collection that I would just scream to the high heavens about how great these games are. I'm still very mad at Capcom for not continuing them. Is Mega Man Legends. I had Mega Man Legends. Oh, people
love those games. Yeah,
I adore those games. I had Mega Man Legends 1 and 2. I played both of them to ever-loving crap. And I adored those games. And they were actually, for a good long while, the most expensive games in my entire collection.
Really?
And yeah, and for a while I was like, I am never gonna get rid of these games. But then some things came up, like bills started knocking at the door. I had a really big vacation coming up ahead, and I was just kind of nervous because like, how am I going to be able to do this? So I would look through I would go through some games thinking I can sell them, get some decent money. And every time, because I have an app on my phone called Game Eye, which kind of gives you some price charting numbers for how much games are. And every time I look through it, I always see Mega Man Legends 1 and 2. Like Mega Man Legends was like $70 on price charting, and then Legends 2 was 100 something. And I'm like, that could really help a lot.
Yeah.
And when I finally did come to the conclusion to sell those titles, it's because I have a modded PlayStation Vita that has those games downloaded on, ready to go.
Yeah.
And even just for extra security, I went and even bought the digital versions on my PlayStation 3 just to make
nice.
And also Tron Bond too, because I'm like, screw it.
As well. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because I'm still waiting for Capcom to come out with a Mega Man Legends Legacy set. Yeah. Hurry up.
I know. Come on. Capcom has so many good titles that they're just sitting on. I could rant about that for years.
Too. Oh, I am there with you. Thank God that they released the Mega Man Battle Network games, because actually, even before I sold my Legends games, I rebought a copy of Mega Man 4 or Battle Network 4 Red Sun, which is a copy I had as a kid. Then I went through like I don't need these video games anymore, dumb phase, sold a bunch of games, got back into video gaming. I'm like, man, I was an idiot. And
we all have that.
Yeah. But because of the legacy collections, like I don't need this physical copy anymore. And even I had physical copies of Advance Wars 1 and 2, but because the Reboot Camp came out for the Switch, which has a bunch of quality of life improvements, I'm like, you know what? I can just save up and get that, get a complete package on a newer system that's ready to go. And I don't, as much as I keep my Game Boy Advance in really good shape, it's probably not going to last forever. As hard as that might be. And also there could be a chance that once again, further down the line, I might be able to purchase it again. Who knows?
I think that is so valid. And I think that, you know, for some collectors, they're like, oh, like, how could you do that? But I mean, as long as you're playing and enjoying a game, however you decide to own that game is completely valid. Like, it's your life and it's your collection. For me, I went through this kick where I was like, I need to buy physical copies of every single game that I beat. And I have like 600 Steam games. So I beat a lot of games. I haven't beat that many, but I still beat a lot of games. And I ended up with all these PS5 and PS4 games that I was never going to play, because if I ever play them, I'm going to play them on PC still. And I was like, what's the point of me owning this? It's just stuff. It's not games I've like, it's not the copies that I played. I'm not really going to reach for them when I go to play, because I'm more of like my Steam Deck and my Switch when it comes to like consoles. And I was just like, this is just stuff. And that's what, at the end of the day, as difficult as it is to swallow, it's just stuff. Like, you're not going to die getting rid of it. Obviously, again, there are still those holy grails that you have. But like, anytime that I've really sat down and been like, I need to narrow down the collection. I have this bill to pay, or I have to get ready for this, or rent's due. Which I do try to be very fiscally responsible. I feel like I'm like making it sound like I'm just like out here just like dropping fat stacks on a video game. Like, it's not like that. I just want to let people know about that. But anytime I've had to sit down and think about that, it always starts off with, I can't get rid of any of this. I love all of this. Like, I always told myself I would never get rid of any Silent Hill things ever. And then the other day I was like looking at everything and I was like, well, I could start off by just getting rid of, you know, the Wii one I have, which is Shattered Memories. Like, I hate the Wii. I don't want to ever play this on Wii, even though it's the best version of it. And then I was like, well, maybe I should get rid of the Xbox ports. Like, I sold my Xbox, so I don't really need that. And then at that point it was like, I don't need my PSP versions either. Like, I have a Vita that has them on there and is way better. The screen on the Vita is phenomenal.
Yeah, I played the original Final Fantasy, the PSP port on my Vita.
It's so, I haven't played Final Fantasy, but I can only imagine how stunning it is, because the Vita does not get enough appreciation for how good of a handheld it was.
That pixel art, just the pixel art for the PlayStation Portable port, was so gorgeous. I know the pixel remaster is out. I have a fondness for classic Final Fantasy pixel art. There's a fondness there. I cosplay as the Black Mage when I go to Ren fairs.
Nice.
But yeah, it's awesome. But at the same time, it's just like, just looking at the more detailed sprite work on the PlayStation Portable, it's like, why didn't Square just stick with this when they made the remasters? This is so much better.
It's so much more charming. But again, I'll always give people props for trying something new. But I am such a stickler for, you know, the original of everything. But yeah, so when going through it, it's just like you kind of end up, I feel like for me in this phase where it's like, it's just stuff. And for me, I was selling this stuff to start, you know, my savings for my move. And it was like, you know, it's really cool that these are tools and a gateway to help me do something that I've always dreamed of doing. And that these tools are helping me facilitate moving to a area that will be better for me, that will allow me to grow. And in the meantime, it's not like I'm throwing these away. Like, somebody else is going to buy them. They're going to like them. They're going to have a good experience, or even a bad experience, but at least they will have an experience with these games and they will continue to live on. And that's such an amazing legacy.
Yeah, Eli, for the love of God, don't do what I did with my Dreamcast.
Do I want to hear this?
Oh no, you don't know the story. Okay, because longtime listeners of the show, they know the story. They're probably groaning with like, make another ding for when I tell the story to a new guest. So TLDR, the laser broke on my Dreamcast. And this was like when digital gaming was just like becoming a thing. Like you could buy games digitally, and they were re-releasing a lot of digital games. And my dumbass thought, oh, I could just buy these games digitally because I had Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. I had Toy Commander and a few other sports titles, Echo the Dolphin on the Dreamcast. So I went to a Goodwill and I just donated them all. Yeah. Yeah, audio listeners, you can't see, but Eli just put their hands on their face because it was
That breaks my heart. I guess
it breaks me now. Do you know how many times if I could go back in time to a certain moment and stop myself from doing that? I mean, there's other things, but that is like one of the top things I would go back in time. Is like, hey, younger me, whatever you do, just get this repaired. Don't donate it. Just don't.
I am literally like, I hear my childhood Dreamcast in my closet crying. It is just sobbing in there.
I weep too. I honest to goodness weep too. So once again, but this was like way back in, actually this was well over like 10 years ago. I want to say 2011, 2012, maybe around there. And this was back when Sega Dreamcast, it wasn't, I mean, the Dreamcast isn't as popular or much revered as it is today. And I definitely wasn't in the retro video game scene because there are times where I would go sell games to Frankenstein's, which is like my local, it's not a local game store. It's like this big giant nerd swap meet. If you ever come out to Southern California, hit me up. I'll take you. It's a really cool place. You'd love it.
Sounds super awesome.
But of course, I would go there sometimes and I would try to sell games. I'd sell a bunch of other stuff I have, thinking I could get top dollar, and I get kind of screwed over. Or at least they would try to lowball me because, they're also trying to make money. But me as
I have a lot of feelings on that.
Yeah, I can understand because you work in that field. Yeah. But once again, this was younger me not understanding what the heck is going on, and also thinking, oh, I could get these games digitally. Thankfully, PlayStation 3, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, they're there. Blessed be that store. and now it's just like, now I have a much deeper respect, but also at the same time, even with certain systems, I will try to sell, even though I know I can't get like top dollar. At least I can get something that can help, that I'm comfortable with, and of course the buyer is comfortable with. Like one of the things I also recently sold to help like boost my finances a little bit was my childhood Game Boy Pocket that I've had ever since my very first Game Boy Pocket. But my rationale for selling that system was I have a Game Boy Advance SP. That is the main system I play on. I don't really play on a Game Boy anymore. If I were to buy a Game Boy again, it'd be a modded Game Boy Color with a backlit screen. So as much as it hurt to get rid of such a great childhood item that I've had for so long, just like you said, it's all stuff. At the end of the day, I wasn't using it. I didn't need it. One of the games you can definitely pry from my cold dead hands is my original copy of Pokemon Red, which I won't lie, I thought about selling it, but no, because that game, Pokemon, was definitely one of the games that set me on the game. Like, while Sonic was my very first video game that I've ever played, like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Pokemon was definitely one of those games that also set me on a path to loving not only the game, but also the RPG genre in general. And that's like, to me, that is a very sentimental game that I do not want to get rid of.
I mean, that's a core memory in an object.
Yeah, I will never forget the day my parents brought my brother and I out of our rooms, sat us down, brought both of the games out, put them on the table, and since I'm the oldest, I got to pick first.
What made you choose Red?
Charizard. I thought the dragon, I didn't know who he was. I just thought he looked cool.
That's fair.
And thankfully, my brother thought Blastoise was the cool looking one, so it all worked out.
I'm a Squirtle girl myself, so I respect his decision. I respect your decision as well, but I always choose water types.
Oh, I will not lie. When I was a kid and I first played and I picked Charmander and I got to Brock and I got blasted by him, because, this was 1998. I was 7, 8 years old when the game was released in America. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I was so mad at Brock and Rock types that I did restart the game and pick Squirtle just so I could get past Brock.
That is so fair. You just play smarter, not harder.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I really believe in that.
Yeah, and then when this beautiful game came out, Pokemon Silver, the first time I played it, I just did the same thing in Red. steamroll everyone with my starter, except this time,
There you go.
the first gym is a flying type gym. Cyndaquil, go!
Yeah.
And then I get to the lane 4 and get squashed.
Mm-hmm. I know that the Pokemon games do this really beautiful thing of building your confidence and then just wrecking you. Like, oh, you thought you knew how to play this game? You thought your Pokemon were strong enough? No. Get your butt whooped.
Yeah. It wasn't until Silver where I actually figured out how to play. Like, I didn't understand what the term level grinding meant.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I would catch a wild Pokemon, heal it up, and then throw it in battle. I was like, wait, but that other trainer's Pokemon was doing a lot more damage. How come my Pokemon isn't doing that much damage? And then one day it just clicked. I was like, I know it. Oh, okay. So that's what it means by they leveled up. And that's what that blue bar on the bot. Oh.
Like
I
it
have
clicked.
to. Yeah, everything just finally clicked. And I was like, so that's how we play this game. And then I beat the Elite Four. I became the champion. I went to Kanto. I never got to Silver, or I never got to Red on top of Mount Silver. But playing my Silver version, my original Silver version, unfortunately, the save battery died, and I didn't think I was ever going to play Pokemon against. Yeah, but thankfully, one of my best friends did give me a copy of Soul Silver, so I still have that. I have I have the better version. And then, of course, that was when I go into Soul Silver. That was when I also came to the sudden realization that Nintendo doesn't like to put their games on sale a whole lot.
Nope.
Yeah, because my dumbass, and the game came out like in 2009. I didn't have money for Soul Silver, and it was a DS game. It was only $40. Now
no one has money for Soul Silver anymore either.
No, but even back then, when it was actually affordable, my dumbass thought, "Oh, I'll just wait till Target puts it on sale." They never do, and then it gets super expensive. And now I just have the game. I don't have the box or anything. I just have the game card, so I have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at least you have the game.
Exactly. At least I have the game. I'm okay with having the game. So you mentioned that you had thoughts about, like earlier when I said about going to a store and getting lowballed. I apologize if that made you mad. That wasn't my intent.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, because you work in a video game store. How often do people come into video game stores and expecting that they could get the same price that they see on the shelf?
So, it's interesting because my strong feelings are actually towards, I have to think about how to word this.
Okay. Because we don't want to make any customers mad, right?
No. So it's not necessarily for customers. It's more so actually for other stores and how other stores choose their payment models and how they underpay people for their games. So it's really what I more so feel strongly about, because fortunately, at least our customer base, so I'm the manager of my store, and I do a little bit of everything. So,
nice.
Managing work, I also do repairs, I also do, I buy stuff. So I have a direct hand in a lot of things. And it's very rare that people want, I would say more so towards the end of the pandemic, there were a lot of resellers who were trying to get out of the game. And for them, when they had paid really high prices, it was really hard for them to be like, well, this actually depreciated. I'm not good with words. It had, lost value, and actually you're going to get a lot less for it. Yeah. Or also, a lot of people who were ill-informed and had seen, Super Mario Bros. Sold for like whatever crazy price it did through WADA.
The whole WADA scandal. Yeah.
And then being like, yeah.
I have very strong feelings about that.
Which is completely fair and very real. But people will be like, okay, well, if that's sold, I have this stack of 360 games, so this should be worth something. And then having to explain, like, your 7 sports games are actually going to go in our dollar bin. And, we never want to make people feel bad when we make offers, and we always want to be really transparent with people. And we also price stuff at market value. So we try to be very fair with our pricing. So, a lot of the conversations are, we'll be honest if GameStop can give them more. We'll be honest if other local stores in the area can give them more. It's very much so based on store needs. And that transparency is so important when it comes to customers. And recently, this isn't really the question you asked me, so I apologize. But recently, I made a few videos about the fact that GameStop is buying retro video games. And they've done that before, but they're restarting their whole process, and they are offering between $20 and $40 for games like Cubivore and Chrono Trigger. And those are games that are, Cubivore is worth, I think, the upwards of $600, and Complete in Box Chrono Trigger is worth, I think, what, $300, $400, something like that.
Are we talking like SNES or DS?
SNES.
Okay, because I remember seeing a CIB Chrono Trigger at a local game store. This was like this was like a few years ago. The pandemic was just slightly lightening up a little bit, but I remember seeing it in the box, $500, and I was joking with a buddy. That's insane. Yeah, I was joking about it, saying, "Hey, do you want a PS5 or a Chrono Trigger?" Yeah,
I mean, I bought my DS copy of Chrono Trigger for like $90, and it was complete in box and in good shape. So $500 is a big no.
You're gonna hate me. I got my DS copy for $75, and it has the poster.
Ugh! How dare you?
Eli, it was a very lucky eBay buy. I got stupid
lucky
on
that one. But I do also have this right here.
Oh, look how gorgeous! This is
my Super Nintendo. I'm streaming this right now.
Audio listeners, they just pulled up a crisp, beautiful looking CA. I think that's also one of the reasons why the other store I saw had the game for super expensive. It was a crisp, clean copy.
Yeah. I mean, condition definitely matters.
It wasn't sealed, but the box itself was like very, very well taken care of. Like if there was any like flaws to the box, it was maybe a little crease where the owner opened it up the first time. Other than that, it was a gorgeous box. And looking back on it now, if I win the lottery, it's like, yeah, I might pay $500 for that.
Absolutely. I mean, something that's beautiful and in great condition. I mean, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
And that's hard to replicate too, because obviously, there's a finite amount of things in good condition. But yeah, so GameStop is buying stuff. It does not seem like they're differentiating between something being complete or sealed or no manual. And a lot of people are turning around and saying, well, it's like listed on their website for $40 or whatever. And it's like the prices that it's listed at are not updated. They're probably going to sell these games on the back end and not in store, because no store is going to sell a $600 game for $30, no matter how good you think a store is. And especially a big corporation like GameStop that doesn't necessarily treat their employees very well. They're definitely not going to be, for the people. Right. And, the response I got was, well, GameStop's just trying to make money. It's the consumer's fault if they choose to sell to GameStop. Or like games shouldn't be that expensive, which the games shouldn't be that expensive. I agree. However, they are. What do you want me to do about it? I'm not the rich people funneling money into this. I'm the one saving up to buy stuff. And I can't price stuff down. It's either you underpay someone or you price something at market value, or some people choose to price it above. The response that I hate is like, it's the consumer's fault, because as somebody who's worked in this business for over 2 years now, the people who bring games into a retro game store or perhaps a GameStop, because GameStop can pay for ad space. So if you Google them, like Google where to sell video games, they're always come up first. A lot of people imagine maybe people our age or, kids who are just trying to make a few bucks. But a lot of times, it has been people who are selling stuff so that they can go to school, people who are selling stuff because they need to pay rent, people who, we have had so many people who come in and say, my dad or my spouse or so-and-so has passed away. I have their entire collection and we're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to pay for funeral expenses, or it's too hard for us to look at. And it's a very delicate situation to handle. We have had people who have said, I've had family members who have been through a house fire, or there's been a flood and I need to sell this stuff to help pay for repairs. We have seen people who are welcoming the birth of a child, which is obviously a very positive thing, who are like, I need this to help support my child. It's been people who have been in some really tough situations. And to me, the thought of going into these situations and undervaluing or taking advantage of their need and their necessity is just so heartbreaking to me, because again, I run a profitable business. I also run a business that pays its employees well. I also run a business that pays well for games. Like, you can do it all. Maybe you won't be a millionaire, but you can do all these things and have a profitable business without taking advantage of people.
Right.
And so to see other places not hold themselves to that standard, or to see people blame people for getting ripped off at GameStop, is just really, really heartbreaking, because there's not a lot of humanity in it. And for me, I hope that if these people saying these things, or these people who are taking advantage of these people, I hope that they never are in a situation where they need to sell things to get by. But I hope that if that does happen, that they are treated with the grace and the respect that they're not giving to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say GameStop, because I don't know if you saw that video, or at least that photo of this guy who not only, because there was this guy went into a GameStop, traded in a CIB Pokemon N64, like almost an entire collection of CIB SNES games. And what he got was, in exchange for a trade-in, including a cash value, was the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom OLED.
I did see this. I think this was a fellow retro game store, though. I don't even think it was a GameStop, which is what made it worse.
I thought it was a GameStop. I could have sworn it was.
Pretty sure it's a retro game store, because people had sent me the store. And again, I'm not trying to discredit them. They could have paid him more, and maybe it's just the way that they presented the video. I don't know. It's all speculation.
Right.
Not trying to, dog on their business, but if that is how it appears, that was the trade and that's what he got, that is just heartbreaking. And to be confident enough to post it online is further it just blows my mind. So, which is why I have to believe there's more behind the story. But there are people who are just confident in posting that, and confident in posting that, they ripped someone off, and someone may say, oh, well, they're still happy. Sorry, my camera froze again. But, oh, well, they're still happy. But also, you should still do what's right. Like, do the right. We've had people who come in and, obviously it's situational. If someone's like, I'm just looking to get rid of this stuff, I'm not going to pay 70% for it. But, there's times where people have had really good stuff. Pokemon stuff is a great example. And they're like, I don't know, I was thinking like $10 a game. And it's like, I'm not going to give you $10 a game because they're worth so much more. Like, this is what I'm going to offer you, because that's what's fair. That is what you are deserving of. And again, I think it's just, there's a lot of lack of empathy in different fields. And again, empathy is not going to make you rich, but I would rather be a good person than be super rich.
Yeah, definitely. There are even I think the one time where I won't say I screwed them over, because like when you mentioned GameStop, because when I went to go pick something out, I went to go pull out my case for Mega Man Star Force 2 Zerker Saurian.
Nice.
Thank you. Because when I got this at GameStop, and I saw it because I was just like, they still had like a cabinet of DS and Game Boy games that were loose. I figured, I'm just gonna give it a gander. And of course, I saw this, and I'm like, oh, I've never played any of the Star Force games. That was, once again, when the Star Force games were coming out, I was just over my Battle Network phase, and I was like, I don't know about Mega Man anymore. Spoilers, I still love Mega Man. I'll love Mega Man to the day I die.
Yeah.
And this game was on sale at a GameStop for $14.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, I'm just going to double check to see if that is a good price on like a price charting. I'm sorry, 74? Yeah, I'll like this game out of the case, please. Yeah. And the dude was just like, he got the tag off. It said 14. I checked my receipt. They charged me $14. Actually, no, I got charged $10 for it because I'm a member at GameStop and I had to use my $5 coupon. So
wow.
So I go home and I'm talking to my friends about this, and my friends are like, well, if GameStop charged you $14 and the game is really only $14, like, dude, look on eBay right now and see how much this game is going for. And they're like, oh shit, what?
Wow. Hey, a steal is a steal. If a company puts something out and says that that's what the price is, like, so be it. We've done that a few times where we sold stuff and then it's been like, oh, we accidentally undervalued that. But, mistakes happen. Things happen. And someone is very happy because of that mistake.
And also at the same time, this was like, it's GameStop, big corporation.
Exactly.
I mean, part of me kind of wants to say, screw you, big corporation GameStop. But at the same time,
that's what I say.
Yeah. It's weird because it's switching gears and going to GameStop for a very quick second. Part of me does want to say, screw you, big corporations, let's go mom and pop. But then there are times where it's like, I don't really have a diehard loyalty, but at the same time, I know there are people who do work at GameStop who actually do give a damn and they do care
absolutely.
about video games, and I don't want them to suffer. It's very weird because the only time I go to a GameStop nowadays is just to buy the newer games. Retro games, I go to conventions, I go to my local stores first, or I get lucky with eBay, like this beauty right here.
Oh my gosh.
Chrono Trigger.
I can't believe it.
I mean, I will not lie. The case is a little, but it is a legitimate game. It is the poster and the manual and all the inserts are there. The only thing is that the case and the outside paper cover are a little, not the best, but still.
That just means it was a little well-loved,
It was a little well-loved, but yeah, it's got the poster. Oh, hey, there's my copy of Fire Emblem. That's where that went. Sacred Stones.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I did not mean to drop that flex. Eli, I apologize. That did not mean to turn into a flex. I am so sorry.
Flex away.
I am so sorry. The second after I said it, you just went, wow. I was like, oh shit.
No, I'm so pro flexing. I love a good collection.
No, but actually, even because I finally did get a copy of Fire Emblem recently.
Nice.
I traded for it. I had like a bunch of GBA games. Like even earlier, I mentioned my copy of Mega Man Legends 1 and 2. The games I traded was my copy of Mega Man X4, which is my personal favorite Mega Man X game of all time. I absolutely adore that game. Mm-hmm. And I had my PlayStation 1 copy actually I rebought it because I sold it back in the day. Then I rebought it, not a bad price. Mm-hmm. And then it started going up there. I was like, you know what? I need to, there's these games I don't really need. And I decided to sell it. But then, of course, I was at this little buy, sell, trade event that a local store had. And the guy had Fire Emblem. And I had like about $80 worth of games. The guy was selling Fire Emblem for $80. And it was a clean switch.
Nice.
And I'm like, you know what? I'll take that. That's totally fine with me.
Absolutely. That is a good score.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It's pretty sick. I did want to say too, on the topic of GameStop, is like, though I hate them as a corporation, I'm never like anti-employee because it's not someone's fault for where they work. We also have a lot of GameStop employees that we're friends with. And, like for me, I would be more pro GameStop if they treated their employees a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
But I also think GameStop's important because it's still about, so for me, accessibility is the number one thing. There are people who have retro game stores that don't have very good prices, and GameStop's better for them. There are people who only have GameStop as a game store. Like for me, it's better that somebody has access to games and prices that are appropriate than for me to be on like my high horse about like small businesses are better, because not everybody has that option.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And of course, there are some stores that have that must have some reputations of like constantly overcharging, upselling. And then, or doing the same thing GameStop would be like when someone would go in with some games to sell, they would vastly lowball them. Because like when you were mentioning earlier about like trying, being a good person and like explaining to someone like, hey, you have a Pokemon game. I'm not buying this for you for $10. I will buy this for you for a much higher price because, Pokemon sells. Like the last time I went to go sell games, I was talking, because once again, went back to Frankensons. They're not paying me to mention them, I swear to God.
They should be though. Let's get a sponsorship for you.
I would kill for a sponsorship by anyone right now. My gosh, I would be chugging all the Sonic G fuel.
You and me both.
Let's do this. Let's do this, Eli. Like Dr. Squatch, I buy Dr. Squatch at Frankensons because there's a game booth that sells soap.
It's so awesome. I love that.
Eli, this is 100% true. There is a store. There is a booth that sells video games and handmade soaps. And some of the soaps they sell are Dr. Squatch. I know
it's a necessity.
It is so awesome. And I cannot tell you how many times I've bought Dr. Squatch soaps from them. And I'm just like, how do I get sponsored by these guys? Because they're actually so legit incredible. Good.
Hey, there we go. Dr. Squatch, are you hearing this? Let's get a sponsorship in here.
Seriously, my fiance would love that. She also helps me pick which sentences she likes more. But anyways, back to...
Heck yeah, I love that.
But going back to like selling games over at Frankenstein's, because there's multiple retro video game booths that do buy games on the regular. And there's a good friend of mine who works there and who runs a booth. And I would talk to him and I'd show him what I have. And he would either say, I would give you this price, but I think you could get more. And he would point me in other directions. I would go talk to them. And because obviously I would go in with a certain price in my head. And because thankfully I have a better understanding of how business works, unlike I did when I was a child, I would, like when I would pick out the games I'm choosing to sell or deciding to sell, I would say, okay, all these games on price charting are about, say, like $220 collectively. I'm probably going to get like 180. So let's just like try to get these for like 180. If I could get 190, cool. But I know there's no way in hell I'm going to get the whole 220 for it. Or at least start at 220, or at least say, hey, 220. And then if they give me an offer, negotiate, try to meet in the middle, and then see where they're coming from. Like the lowest I'll go is here, but what I want is here. Let's see if we can get me in the middle.
Yeah.
And there are times where I've had to take a little bit lower option, but there are other times where I actually got a little bit lucky and maybe got like $5 or $10 over than what I originally hoped for. Once again, when I would sell these games, my whole point isn't for profit. Like I'm not some profit goblin, but it's like I do need this cash for, like when I would sell these games, it's like they would ask me, it's like, hey, how come you sell these games? You love these games. It's like, yeah, but my fiance's ring was X expensive. The trip to Hawaii was X expensive. I'm kind of in a bit of a bind, so I just need to get these. I just need all the help I can get. So, I mean, sometimes like, well, I want to help you, but unfortunately, they would actually give me a lowdown of why they charge how much they do, or why they would sell, or they would pay for as much as they would. I mean, there's some wiggle room, especially if you're friends with these people, which has helped me out a few times. But I do 100% get that they're also trying to run a business. They are also trying to make their own bills, to make their own make ends meet.
And if you know the transparency of like they pay employees well, they pay other people well, they're pricing well, like that breakdown is super important, because sometimes if I go somewhere and a product is at a premium, it's like, well, I'm okay paying that premium because I know the way that the funds are being dispersed are good and they're equitable. And I get why they're doing what they're doing. But then, of course, you always have scummy people, unfortunately. There will always be bad people in the world, but...
I'm happy to say that I don't think I've yet to come across scummy sellers yet. Because like now, I remember when I went to Portland Retro Gaming Expo last year.
Oh, nice.
And thank you. And it was so great. I would definitely, if you're a retro video game fan.
It's one of my dreams. Hopefully I can get out there someday.
I would love to go to like Too Many Games, Midwest Gaming Classic, Retropalooza.
I haven't been to Too Many Games. I haven't been to, we have another, what is it, MagFest. Those are like video game things that are near me. I haven't been to them, but all of them sound great. There's so many gaming conventions I want to go to.
I am so glad that gaming conventions are a thing now. I just want to go to all of them. Thankfully, in California, we have some. You
guys are a little spoiled. You guys have a lot of good stores, and you guys have your conventions. So, I can only be so sympathetic towards you.
True. I mean, when you told me where you live, I was like, damn, there's not a lot out there. But because I remember when I went to a store the day before the convention started, and we were just, me and my friend of mine, we were just like going around looking, trying to find some place, get some stuff before the convention started. And when I went to the store, I mean, I thought the store was great. They had a great, huge selection. But one of the things I was like, yikes about were, of course, video game prices. But and at the time, I was like, man, these are really expensive games. But then I thought, okay, the area I'm in, the Pacific Northwest, big tech area, big game area. These people know what they have. So, of course, they upcharge. And it wasn't until maybe a few weeks ago where I realized it's like, but they also have a large storefront. There was like 3 or 4 employees working there constantly. And also they had a booth at the convention. So now it kind of makes sense why they have to maybe put prices up a little bit. And I could only assume. Now, unfortunately, I didn't buy anything because I was saving my money for the convention in the following day.
Of course.
As much as I wanted to, because they had like this cute little mascot of a Tanuki raccoon over like a coat of arms sort of thing. It was absolutely adorable. I was like, dang, I should have gotten that little trinket. But I could also assume that they make sure the games work. The games are tested. There was a person repairing a PlayStation 1, like original PS1 classic, making sure it was all fit, ready to go. And I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with if I was to buy something from him. My buddy did. He bought a Castlevania collection from him.
Nice.
It was the limited run games Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, that one's really nice. Yeah, I don't love everything limited run puts out, but sometimes they put out a banger like that, and I'm like, ooh, that is good.
I definitely got suckered into the Doom collection. That I didn't get the Shadow Box, but I got the Steelbook for the PS4, and haven't put it into my system yet. But it still is like nice.
Yeah, that's a one that I would go for as well. There's some titles that you're just like, here's my money.
Pretty much.
Just take it. Well, I can't say anything else. Just take it.
You're like that thing on TikTok where the guy just like comes in, just slams his credit card and goes,
literally.
Take it. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I became Fry from Futurama. I was like, shut up and take my money.
So real. So real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about prices. And I mean, I always try to hold people the same. We test everything. We clean everything. We remove stickers. We're very, very good about the condition that we put stuff in. We also price stuff based on condition. And I really try to assume the best of everyone, which is why, like, I'm very much so not trying to be like, oh, well, my store is so much better. Like, in my mind, and what I tell people all the time is, like, when I go into a game store, I give them the same respect that I give to my store and the same assumptions that I give to my store. Because I'm not going to walk into somewhere and be like, your prices are terrible. Your store sucks. You probably don't pay your employees right. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to assume that they have a reason for everything. And I might not choose to buy something from them because I might know I can get it somewhere better. But regardless, I'm still not going to I would never, I was thinking about this the other day. I would never leave a bad review for another game store. Like, I could never do that. That would be like stabbing someone in the back because I'm in the industry. Like, that would be like, I know what this takes and a big F you. Maybe if they were like terrible, but like, I would never do that.
Like, actively berating customers or berating employees in front of you. Then it's like, okay,
or like snapping discs in half or like doing something crazy.
Yeah. Like, if they were to do that, then they deserve it. But yeah, you are a manager of a game store. So if anyone is qualified to talk about this, it would be you because you run it. I wouldn't say a norm because I have worked in retail before. I do know what goes into. I worked at an old mom and pop store. I worked at an old toy store back in the day.
Oh, that is so cool. I also collect 80s and 90s Barbies, so I'm always like very enamored by the concept of toy stores.
Unfortunately, we didn't have any of the older Barbies. We had some newer, but that's not a time in my work life that I'm a big fan of, to be perfectly honest.
Ooh.
I mean, nothing bad really happened. Yeah. It was just stuff that the owner was doing that me and even my best friend who helped get me the job were kind of like, yo, if you want customers, this is what you need to do. And he was like, no, anyways.
Bad management. That's like a tale as old as time. That'll ruin everything.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. My 9-to-5 job has that in spades, and it is just... I'll tell you. I'll give you more details once we stop the recording. But
I would love to hear it.
But going back to selling games, like when you need to sell stuff in your collection, I've mentioned earlier that when I sell games in my collection, one of my driving reasons to sell said games is if I played it hundreds of times and I have ways to play it again, or easier ways to play it again. Do you have similar ways when you need to cull the collection, or do you take a different approach?
Gosh, I wish. I mean, first off, I'm a Silent Hill fan. We probably have the like worst upkeep of our games out of virtually any series. Maybe that's a large claim, but like, just tell me where I can play Silent Hill 1. Like, just try. Maybe it's still in the PS3 store. I don't know though.
Outside of the PlayStation 1, I would say a modded, emulated PlayStation Vita, which is the one I have, but I haven't checked. But I'm pretty sure that's where you can play it.
Yeah, it's you can download it from the PS3 store and then put it onto a Vita or PSP and then other things. But we don't have they don't take care of their games. We know how Konami is. So for me, it's tough because again, I worked backwards, so I would beat games and then I would buy them. That was part of it. I have a Steam Deck, which actually one of my community members, like, major kisses to you, Tomo, if you ever see this. He prepared an SD card with all the emulators I would need and all the files for Silent Hill and tons of other great games that I would need. And that has been a godsend. So I have my Steam Deck right here. If you don't know, if you can't tell, my favorite color is pink.
You know what? I was I had a feeling because looking like audio listener, because I forgot to say this is going as video and audio as well. So audio listeners, Eli's room, there's a lot of pink in there, which is awesome.
Tons of pink.
Yeah, I mean, your headphones that you're wearing, are those Hello Kitty headphones?
These are, I'm going to take them off. They're the Hello Kitty, and they have, sorry, my makeup cuffs are gross because I have makeup all over them, but it has the Hello Kitty's characters on the band, and then it also says Hello Kitty. My mouse pad and my mouse are also the Hello Kitty collab.
That is awesome. I bought my fiance a few of the Hello Kitty Animal Crossing amiibo cards whenever I could get them, because she also loves Hello Kitty. And there was also the time where she had to go to work, but she begged me to wait in line because the Hello Kitty cafe was doing a little pop-up at my shopping center, which is close to my house.
I made one of my coworkers go and wait in line at that to bring me stuff back. So I'm there. I'm right there with your fiance. Okay, I know.
I mean, it was worth it because when I got her stuff, she was super happy, and I was like, okay, if she's happy, then I'm happy.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Thanks. But yeah, so obviously Silent Hill, hard stuff to play, but because you have other games in your collection, at least, I'm 90% sure you have other games in your collection.
Yeah, I do. I promise I do. My stuff, that is not my whole collection. This is also, I live stream. So for those of you who can see my setup, this is also my set. It's my bedroom. It's my set. It's a little bit of everything. So it's kind of set up a specific way. But yeah, I mean, Steam is amazing. I'm big on emulation. Not as big as I was because I can own the games. Obviously, that was out of a necessity. But Steam ports have been amazing. And for me, so I was never a Nintendo kid, not by choice, but by force. I was never a Nintendo kid. So I didn't get to play so many games until the Switch. The Switch has been a whole new world for me. That's where I played my first Pokemon game. I played the Pokemon Diamond remake.
You have Diamond too?
Yeah. I got it for Christmas, and I literally played over 40 hours of it in the span of 3 days. I was just like hooked. I was like waking up. I was like, I gotta do this.
Now you were talking about flexing. I applaud you, Eli. I applaud you. I salute you. Because I originally had Diamond when it first came out. Another one of the games I sold like an idiot because I loved that game because I skipped Gen 3 and I went into Gen 4. And I loved it. And then when, of course, Brilliant Diamond comes out, it's like, I have to play this. And me and another friend of mine, Grayson, he and I were like constantly messaging each other, trying to trade Pokemon back and forth because he had Shining Pearl and I had Diamond. So we're like trying to get all the exclusives.
I mean, it was such a fun game. It completely got me. And I finally understood the Pokemon craze. I had cards growing up. Well, my brother did. The cards were okay. I guess the video games weren't. Nice. Unfortunately, it was funny. We tried to go through our collection to be like, do we have any ones that we can sell? And we had only trash cards. We had like the worst cards. We were like, we can't make money on any of this.
Yeah. Sorry, you just unlocked another memory for me about the Pokemon cards because I had a decent collection of Pokemon cards back in the day. But of course, when I was out of my Pokemon craze, I think I got rid of all my cards in the garage sale. And of course, years later, I'm like, ugh. And then, of course, I meet my, then girlfriend, now fiance.
Yeah.
And she still has her cards, including a holographic Charizard.
My best friend's the same way. I literally think she has a holographic Charizard as well. Obviously, it's like very well played. But her collection amazes me. And I'm like,
yeah. Not only does she have it's not a first edition, like super expensive. She has it in a binder. So if we were to get graded, it'd still go for a pretty penny, but not like the super pretty penny. But even to this day, because at Portland, I bought the Pokemon TCG game for the Game Boy Color. I played it. I learned how to play the Pokemon game 20 plus years after the fact.
Heck yeah.
And now I love it. I'm not buying cards regularly, but I still have never pulled a Charizard, and I am still mad about it.
I know it'll happen for you. I'm manifesting for you that it'll happen soon.
I hope so, because I really want some boxes of the new Paldea set, and also I want Skeledirge because I have because I started with Fuecoco in Scarlet, in Pokemon Scarlet, and I love that crocodile.
I think the Scarlet and Violet starters are so adorable and very well done.
They are.
Absolutely. But yeah, I'm sorry. Going back to the Switch, I'm like, I can go on like 7 million tangents. So I'm trying to reel myself in. Otherwise, I'll talk forever.
Eli, good thing about the show, tangents aren't just welcome. They're encouraged.
Yes, I love that. I've found my people. But my friend and community member and mod, his nickname is Dix. Which always sounds funny saying that out loud, but it's just his name. And he was like, "Oh, do you have like the Nintendo expansion packs and whatever, the retro, whatever they're called? I don't know what Nintendo calls them." I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I have room on my family plan." And I was like, "Put me on that family plan." And like immediately just downloading, the games and going through all the games that they have. I mean, they even have Sega games. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I can play Earthbound now. Like, I can play some of the Legend of Zelda games. And my Switch has just been such a great tool into retro games that I never really wanted to buy. But I still wanted to experience and playing them in a way that feels authentic. So I really applaud Nintendo for the way that they have gone about some areas of their game preservation. Obviously, it's not a straight shot of being great, but it's just super cool to have an online service like that. And to bring the games to a new generation of people to enjoy. I think that that's really special.
Yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I fought to get my Super Nintendo Mini when that came out back in.
Oh, yeah, those are great too.
I mean, I missed out on the NES the first round. Then one day I walk into my local GameStop for something completely different, and they had a bunch of NES Minis on the counter for sale. And and I had to tell my fiance, like, I need this.
Yeah, you gotta get it.
Even when I was working a different shift at work, I got off work and I drove to a local Target and I stood in line for 2.5 hours for them to open to secure my Super Nintendo Mini.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, when I first heard that they were even doing a Super Nintendo Mini, I was like, I need this. Because when I was a kid, I had 2 next door neighbors. And in the house that I remember living in when my brother was born in Murrieta, and my other one that I grew up in Diamond Bar. The first one was, of course, one of my oldest friends. I'm still in contact with him today. He had a Sega Genesis, and that's how I got introduced to Sonic the Hedgehog. So Mom and Dad blame him. And and then when we moved from there to Diamond Bar, my next door neighbor and also my kindergarten classmate, she had a Super Nintendo where I experienced Super Mario World and Street Fighter 2 for the very first time. So the fact that they were coming out with these mini consoles, especially the Super Nintendo one, because I never owned a Super Nintendo prior to that, I'm like, I need this. It has that library of games.
The library is so good.
Yeah, like the second they said, oh yeah, we have Secret of Mana, and at the time people were constantly telling me that Secret of Mana was one of the best RPGs they ever played, kind of like this one right here. I'm like, I need it. I need this thing. And I got it, and then Collection of Mana came out, and a bunch of other stuff came out.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
But still...
Oh, no, I would still have, because I have Collection of Mana, too. I'm not getting rid of that sucker.
Oh, nice.
No.
That's awesome. No. That is so sick. But the mini consoles, I mean, they're amazing. They were a great idea, and I'm really happy that they did them, and I hope that they continue to do it for other consoles as well.
I would kill for a Sega Saturn Mini.
Oh, my gosh.
I would kill for a Dreamcast Mini, of course, but if Sega Saturn is definitely one of those systems that in recent years has gotten a lot more popular in the retro gaming circles, but it's also gotten stupid expensive.
It is very, very expensive. I have, I'm trying to think of what Saturn. I have D. I have Enemy Zero, and I have House of the Dead 2.
Ooh.
I think for Saturn. I think that's it for my Saturn games. No, that's it. Those are 3 really great kind of expensive titles. But yeah, that's it for me. But it's like, I mean, I can't imagine having more than 3 Saturn games and not feeling guilty because they're so expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because even when I would go to a local store and I would even see a Sega Saturn, my first thought is, ooh, and then I look at the price tag and I go, ooh, and then I look at and then seeing the games, I'm like, ah, and I run away.
Absolutely. I cannot blame you. Especially because like it leaves less room for risk because you can't really buy a game that kind of looks interesting because it's like you can't really take a risk on like a $200, $300 game. Like,
or a $400 one, which is what I saw Panzer Dragoon Saga for.
I mean, I think that's a low price for that. I feel like that game's worth. Is that one that's worth like 900? I could be wrong. There's one. I'm gonna open up price charting. There's one of them that's worth a bunch of money. Panzer Dragoon Saga, complete in box, is worth $1,000. I'm not trying to tell you made a bad decision there. I'm not trying to say that at all.
It must have been a different Panzer Dragoon then.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's one of the other ones that is cheaper.
It might have been 3, or because I know it was a Panzer. I just remember seeing Panzer Dragoon and a price tag for $400.
Yeah,
and then I saw Mega Man X4 for like $230 something, and just every other Saturn game that they were selling, which was a decent sized collection, was very expensive. And then even nowadays, when I go see Dreamcast games like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. $130, give or take.
Sonic Adventure 2, game. Especially.
That was my first Dreamcast game ever.
You gotta go with the expensive taste.
I opened it up on Christmas morning.
Aww.
And even not that, the night before, my parents gave us stuff to open for Christmas Eve, and I opened a third-party Dreamcast controller and Crazy Taxi.
Crazy.
Essentially, they told me that, hey, this is what you're getting tomorrow morning. Have fun.
Yeah.
And like the whole time,
like a little teaser. It's like,
because normally they wouldn't let us. They would only let us open one present on Christmas Eve, and it was normally the present from our aunts who live up in Montana, and it would be like the same thing for my brother and I, just different color variations, so we can tell whose is who. But that Christmas, apparently, we had a lot of stuff on the tree, and they just went, "Yeah, you could go open a few more. Open this," and they were telling me to open one specific one. I'm like, "But I don't have a Dreamcast yet." They're going, "Just wait, just wait."
You might be getting one. Let's see. That's so special. What a beautiful memory.
Yeah, it was. Also, another good one was when I told you earlier, how I wanted a Super Nintendo. One Christmas morning, I open it up, and I see a Nintendo original. NES, not the Super Nintendo that I wanted.
That's a tough one.
Well, when I told my dad what I wanted for Christmas, I told him Super Nintendo. I know I said Super Nintendo, but he only heard Nintendo. And then my aunt, his sister, she had an NES, and my mom was, because when I talked to my mom about this recently, she was like, "I was talking to your dad. I'm pretty sure that's not what you wanted." And my dad was like, he'll like it. And of course, when we open it up at my grandparents in Montana, my grandparents are very much of you're grateful for what you get, and if you're ungrateful,
that is soul crushing as a child. That is so soul crushing.
Well, thankfully, I knew if I made a scene, I was gonna get in trouble, and it's not like I was unhappy with what it was.
Yeah,
I was just like. Well, I had to play it off. I mean, eventually I did tell my dad he got me the wrong thing, and he said, "Well, if you don't want us, we can give it back, and we can get the right one." I'm like, no. Still have it. It's in my dresser. It's right here.
That's so wonderful.
I don't have all the games I grew up with it, unfortunately. I mean, something, because there are a lot of NES games. There's some of them that are. I mean, there are some that I won't get rid of, but there are also some that it's like, if I need to play them, I have my mini or the emulator on the Switch and other ways to play them. Because, they're NES games. They're easy to play.
Yeah. They're not the most complex things.
Nah. Yeah, because I wanted to turn my NES into like what I call a museum piece, just like put it behind glass and make it like a little thing for it. Because, it's the NES.
It's yours, and it's a piece of history. It's like what saved the video game market.
Yeah, here in America, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was one other question that I had for you. That's also the bummer. Sometimes we go on these great tangents, these great rants, these great tangents.
You make tangents and rants into tants. I like that.
Yeah. That's a new word, right? Right here on Base Arcade Tants. So, do you think? Okay, actually, no. You mentioned emulation. There actually, because emulation for me, I am pro, and I am a weird odds with emulation. Not that I think it's bad. In my personal opinion, I think for retro gaming to exist in today's modern age and in the future, emulation is 100% must. We need to have these games available. We need to have a way, or they have to be stored digitally somewhere, which people are doing. And of course, the work of the Video Game History Foundation, I can only imagine they're doing some amazing work. But the way for people to play these games is becoming difficult, and it's also been thrown into like legal hell, to be perfectly honest. Like you mentioned emulation, like for you is what is obviously your pro emulation, but your stance on emulation, are you like 100% like yo ho, or when let's do the legal stuff first and then hoist the colors, so to speak?
So for me, if I bought a game, because there are some games I've bought like 6 times, not even physically, like digitally, I just like lost it. I don't even know. I bought it on some account that I don't remember. So if I bought something a few times, I own it. I bought it. I paid my dues. For retro stuff, it's incredibly important, I think, not only for, preservation, but for accessibility. It's ridiculous to think that everyone has money to spend on retro games, because they just don't. However,
I'm one of those people who has no money to spend on retro games.
Me too. So, for me, what's disheartening is one of the most beautiful things that's happened in, the last probably 10 or so, probably less years, is the amount of independent studios and independent people who are making amazing games. And there seems to be a lack of awareness that if you are playing those games for free, that a person is missing out on a large chunk of that. So, for EA can survive. Okay, EA is going to survive. A person, who's put their heart and soul into a game, and independently, there's a game that came out recently. It's a horror game. It's called Madison. It was a 2-person dev team. And even though it wasn't one of my favorite games of all time, it was really impressive for such a small dev team. And, like those people deserve their money. They deserve their dues. So I think people need to use discretion when it comes to what they're deciding to emulate, which there's a different word that I'd rather use, but I'll say emulate. But for the most part, like I am pretty pro it. I think there's just value in just remembering that like there are people who create these pieces of art and they deserve money for that.
Right. 100% there for the indie teams. When I mention emulation, it's mostly when it comes to essentially dead systems, like systems that are discontinued, systems that there's no online support for anymore. And also it kind of baffles me, because I get Nintendo, they want to protect their IP. It is in their right, unfortunately, but I don't know if you saw the news, but a few weeks or maybe a few months ago, they shut down a site that was making the Dolphin emulator, a GameCube emulator, which was a really well-made emulator. And even before that, when they shut down another Metroid 2 remake because they were making the 3DS game. Mm-hmm. Part of it, sometimes like when Nintendo does stuff, it makes sense. It's like, oh, they're making a new Metroid game. Yay. So of course they want people to get that because they are a business, they need to make money. But when they get mad at people for emulating games for like the GameCube or something they show no support for, especially ever since the Wii U and 3DS eShops closed, that they're saying they're not going to release legacy content elsewhere, it's kind of putting them in a weird limelight. I was like, you are doing good things with legal emulation, such as the minis, and you're putting stuff on NSO, which is good, but you're also kind of kicking us, like putting people down who want to experience these games at a much better frame. Like when I remember when the N64 emulator for the Nintendo Switch came out, it was dogged on,
wasn't it?
It was dogged on relentlessly because like people were playing Ocarina, they're showing how bad the frame rates were. They were saying how horrible, like saw these glitches that should have been fixed, and then they go to their not necessarily approved emulator, or at least not Nintendo approved emulators, and the game is running perfectly. And even when Nintendo did run the game great on, like say the Wii, like when the Wii had their virtual console, they were comparing the two. It's like the technology just got better, and you're giving us a worse product. How is this happening?
Yeah, I mean, for me, laziness in a big corporation is just like unacceptable. For people to push a product to such a willing and dedicated fan base that isn't polished just seems like a slap in the face. And I think for that, like, I cannot blame anyone for emulation. I mean, for me, one of the prime examples of that is if you ever play Silent Hill 2, there is a fan project, and it is the most beautiful, fantastic thing I have ever seen. It's the Enhanced Edition, and they transform the game. The work that they do, this fan patch, is amazing, and it's still being worked on. They're constantly updating. They're constantly improving it. And, you know, that is a case where it's like when people are, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and he was saying, and Silent Hill 2 does have an original PC port, by the way. You know, he's saying, I'm going to play everything on original hardware. And I'm like, well, PC does count as original hardware. It came out on PC, and this is the best way to play the game. You're not going to play in any better way. And, you know, for that, it's like, what a great experience for emulation. And even though we are getting the Silent Hill 2 remake, there's still not any ports of Silent Hill 2 minus the HD collection, which is a whole nother drama. So, you know, that's also what I say to people about Silent Hill 1. Like, you need to experience the game, and this is the best way. Or even, you know, Kuon, Rule of Rose, Haunting Ground, those are all very expensive PS2 survival horror games. I don't think I can tell you in good faith to go out and spend $600, $700 on them. I would love for you to play them. They're not anywhere. They're not ported anywhere. They're not created anywhere. They're abandoned by their creators. So, I think Rule of Rose is Atlas, and then again, Kuon is From Software. So, you know, I think it's fair game. Like, if you're not going to touch an IP, or if you're not going to dedicate the proper work into an IP, then why should we pay you for something that, one, we've probably paid for before, and two, something that you're half-assing for whatever reason.
And also, like you mentioned about how like the IP has been abandoned by the original creator, or and also rights holder. Because I know friend of the show, Well Read Mage. I don't know if you know who he is. He was on the show prior when we were talking about physical and digital collecting, but we were also talking about emulation, and he mentioned the game Illusion of Gaia for the Super Nintendo. Which is a very well-loved Super Nintendo RPG, but the rights have been lost, as in no one knows who owns the rights to the game. And that, because when emulators or when like legal emulation, like the minis when they come out, I can't tell you how many times when a new machine has been released, be it Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, whomever, you get people saying, how come they only release a few games? How come they can't release the entire library? They own it all, right? It's like, no, they don't.
I went through that heartbreak with the Sega Genesis Mini, because one of my favorite games of all time, and my favorite JRPG is Lunar Silver Star Story. I highly suggest it if you haven't played it. It's a piece of art, and because somebody else owned the rights to the music, they could not put it on the Sega Genesis Mini, and stuff like that. Just like, it just breaks my heart, because it's like, you're still not getting money for it. Now people can't play it. Like, it's super disheartening. And that's a game that's expensive both on PlayStation and the Sega CD.
Oh yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I see Lunar Silver Star Story, and I'm intrigued because I love old anime RPGs. I mean, Star Ocean to the End of Time really got me into anime style RPGs, and yay, Second Story R for the Switch, hallelujah. But every time I see Lunar Second Star Story for sale, it's like $200-$300. It's up there. It is really up there, and I just go, ow, my heart.
Yeah.
But also, you mentioned about how the music, it also reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, because Michael Jackson did the music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but Sega doesn't want to get in trouble with the Michael Jackson estate. Kind of smart, because, that's a whole legal battle. They don't want to go through it.
Absolutely. Like, a lot of the times I'm like, okay, I get it. But some of the times I'm just like, no, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, because, my whole stance of emulation is I try to go legal first, mostly because I know that it's going to work the first time.
Yeah.
My whole thing, because I will tell a little story. And then once again, I just want to preface, this is my opinions, 100% my opinions. Maybe don't do this. Because a friend of mine at work, he gave me a fully modded, fully ready to go PlayStation 3. He just had it, and it had RetroArch on it. It was just ready to go. And I was like, oh my God, because I never owned PS3. Now I do. It's fully loaded. I'm a dumbass. And I updated the system software for it and deleted everything. Yeah, once again, audio listeners, Eli is putting their face in their hands because Ben Magnet doesn't know how freaking emulation properly works.
My heart. It's okay. You're doing your best.
I didn't know. That's the thing with emulation. I am not, I'm tech savvy, but I'm not 100% tech savvy to understand how that works. Now, I also have a PlayStation Vita that is modded, that does have a lot of good stuff on it, and I know to never touch the system update button on that thing.
Yes.
Especially since it has a bunch of PlayStation, has a bunch of different mods. But going back to like with my PS3, it was like, jumbled, but thankfully I'm still not upset about it because I have a working PS3.
Yeah.
I have Mega Man. I have 3 great Mega Man games on there. I have Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and I have a slow PlayStation 3 collection growing. Not all is lost.
This is a great time to collect for PS3 as well.
And then I look over to my PlayStation Vita that, it has Dreamcast stuff on there. It has a bunch of stuff on there. But I need to play with the settings more because when I first opened up Sonic Adventure 2 on my PS Vita, I mean, it started off fine, but once I started playing it, the audio was all jacked up.
Yeah.
The frame rate was all iffy. So you have to go in and overclock it. That's why I'm saying for the not so legal emulation stuff, you have to have some know-how or at least be ready to play around with it. Because
I've had that experience too, where I'm just clueless. I don't know what I'm doing with it.
And of course, you could try to go to your friend Google, but sometimes Google doesn't really give you an answer. Or if they do give you an answer, it's a whole bunch of jargled mess, and you're like, I don't understand any of these terms mean. And then you think to yourselves, like, why did I go get a radio degree? I should have gotten a computer science degree instead. That's actually what I did, get a degree, and I got a degree in radio from Cal State Northridge.
I think that is fantastic. At least you did something you wanted to do.
Very true.
And it's serving you well. You're very good at being a podcast host.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Of course, I'm thoroughly enjoying my time.
Yay. But yeah, so with emulation, I do think that even like the Hoist the Colors Yo-Ho emulation is needed because that way people can play games. Because I do understand that we do need to preserve games. We do need to preserve all of this media because it is art, be it the good and bad. It is art. It tells a story. And of course, a friend of mine who got into game design said, I need to play all these games to know what works and what doesn't, because, they also design games. But at the same time, like looking at the Video Game History Foundation, I do agree with the work they're doing, but I understand the big hurdle they have to go through, whereas like we can preserve the game, but we can't let people play it because reasons. It's just like how emulation is technically legal, but other stuff is not. And it's just one of those it's one of those things that makes my brain hurt and just looking at our entire criminal justice system as a whole. Like, why? It's
definitely a weird place to be in as a consumer and like trying to navigate things morally, but also being like, the way people are handling this is so stupid, and I don't want to feed into their stupidity. I want to just have access to this game. Yeah,
definitely. So with Lunar Silver Star Story, I will look at my Vita. And because at the same time,
that's what I was gonna say. Get it on your Vita and play it on your Vita. You won't regret it. That's a fine way to play it.
Yeah, like that's how I played the original Final Fantasy, or I played the PlayStation Portable version through my Vita. That's modded. That was there. It's just like, hey, just click the download button. You're ready to go. Ta-da! And I'm like, this is an amazing game. I absolutely love this game. And then I look at Final Fantasy for the original NES. While I still love it, while I still appreciate it for what it started, I don't think I could play the original version now, even with on my NES Mini, just because of how many quality of life improvements there are on the newer version.
And that is so major. Like, it creates a whole new experience because there are games that like are just a little too old for me. I can't do it. Like the mechanics are just not for me. So I'm I like remakes. Sometimes they get a little ridiculous. But that's why I'm excited about the Silent Hill 2 remake too, even though I could talk about my issues with it for hours. But because, I'm not going to have to play Silent Hill 2 with tank controls. Like, praise the Lord. Like, there's going to be better mechanics. It's like the Resident Evil remakes. Like, it's a completely different experience, minus the RE1 remake. But, like, I get to get my Resident Evil fix, and I don't have to deal with tank controls.
Yeah, or like with me, because Resident Evil 4 was the first, and so far, I mean, I played bits of Resident Evil 7, bits of Resident Evil 8 for our spooky game stuff, but playing RE4, that was my introduction to playing Resident Evil, because I didn't want to deal with the tank controls as a kid.
It's a great entry.
And that's one of my favorite games. I absolutely adore that game. I played through it quite a few times, and I still don't have the remake yet. But
you'll love it.
Oh, that backlog is real. I mean, right now, I've been playing. I mean, today was one of those days where like I want to get all my chores done. I want to get the stuff done, and then I can finally devote time to Tears of the Kingdom, because I know I'm over 100 hours into that thing.
Nice.
And then Final Fantasy 16 is just like, I don't have it yet, but it's like out there.
Yeah. I'm there. You need to play me.
Yeah, and then Jedi Survivor is in my PS5 right now, just like in Jedi Survivor and Sonic Frontiers, they're both like tapping their foot impatiently, like
like we're here, come on, let's play.
Yeah,
I feel that.
But going back to one of the reasons why I think emulation is so important, especially because we were talking about how we're trying to game collect and play games on a budget. Emulators are one of the best ways to do that. So we can finally experience these games and not spend hundreds or sometimes even thousands of dollars on those games.
I think that's so real. I mean, again, accessibility is the biggest thing for me. So giving people an opportunity to play these games and to have a curiosity and a sense of wonder about the world that, again, maybe their finances don't match up with, which for a lot of us is a reality because of how crazy things have been. I would rather people have those experiences because there's so much to be discovered in video games. There's so much art, there's so much beauty, there's so much emotion. And, to me, maybe this is dramatic and someone might scoff at this, but it's like keeping a book from someone, it's just crazy to me. So, I don't know, maybe someday libraries will do a game rental thing again. But for now, emulation is great.
I mean, I would hope so, but at the exact same time, I do get as to why. Quick little, once again, side story. Mm-hmm. When I went to Portland for the gaming expo, the last Blockbuster, like the last standing Blockbuster in the entire
and it's in
world,
Bend, Oregon, right? Yeah.
They had a little pop-up shop at the convention center. So they brought it, like they had their own little area because they were hosting a Blockbuster Video Game World Championship. But they also had a little spot where you can buy merch. It looks exactly like a bunch of photos are on my Instagram. Go ahead and check it out.
I will check that out. Absolutely.
It is awesome. But one of my friends was actually talking to the manager of the store and asked him, "Do you guys still rent video games?" Because I cannot tell you how many times I would go to my local Blockbuster, rent a game, love it so much. A few weeks later, see it in the games for sale aisle at a super discounted price, and it was a sealed copy too. And I would be like, I love playing this game, yoink, and take it home.
That's the best way to experience a game.
It is, but the reason why they don't do the rental system anymore is because people kept stealing the video games.
Yeah. And I would love to do a rental system. We sell VHS and DVD as well. And one of my biggest dreams is to have a video game rental store, but it's just not feasible right now at all. There would have to be like a very big respect from a local community in order for that to work.
Yeah, or at least just be like, hey, if you rent the game, cool. But if we don't get it back in X amount of days, we're just going to assume you kept it. We're going to charge you full market value for that game. So the person who decided to rent Chrono Trigger better be ready to pony up $500.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's more than fair.
Yeah, especially for that game. I mean, if it was a sports game, then okay, sure, just pay $1. That's fine.
Yeah, like whatever. Oh, well, it's like Madden, whatever. We're on. Who cares?
Oh, no, Madden 2008 has gone missing. Oh no!
What
the
horror. We do? No.
The horror.
The day a retro game store runs out of sports games will be the end of times.
I think a day a retro game store runs out of sports games, it's either because someone is doing a YouTube bit or it's a very cold day in hell.
I could go either way. I think those are very similar options.
I mean, one of my favorite YouTubers, Scott the Waz, he bought like every rendition of like Madden. Maybe it was Madden 08. It was one of the it was a Madden game, and he has it for like every system that ever came out on. And that was just like that's. But I don't know if he's ever played it.
Yeah,
and I'm a big sports fan.
Yeah,
but here's the best part: I'm a big sports fan. The only sports video games that I truly like are like backyard baseball, backyard football, NFL
Those
Blitz.
ones are so good.
I absolutely love just the fact. Now, I'm a huge LA Dodgers fan. I mean, I grew up in California. Of course I am.
Yeah.
But when I first got my copy of Backyard Baseball, like 2002, and that was like the first one where they introduced MLB players as kids, it felt so awesome to have Barry Bonds, the famous San Francisco Giant, in a Dodgers uniform. Just be like, screw you, Giants fan.
So that's funny. I'm not a big sports person, but my family's from New York, so we're Giants and Yankee fans. So there you go.
As long as you guys will probably hate me if you're Rangers fans. 2014 Los Angeles.
Not Rangers. No, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. So Islanders fans then.
I don't even know. My dad's just straight across, just New York, the Yankees and the Giants for sports. He grew up in Queens. I think that's all he has the emotional bandwidth for at this point.
Yeah. Well, last time I checked, the Yankees were actually doing pretty good. I mean, Dodgers are not that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we've been better, but no. Well, yeah, I love I'm weird. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I love video games, but also I love the sports. I love the sports ball.
I'm a big proponent of like you should love as much stuff as you want. Like you shouldn't just like be into a box. Like if you're a nerd, you can only like nerd things. Yeah. It's like the more love there is to go around, the more passion there is, the better off we are.
Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Eli, I think that's all the questions I have. This truly
I think we could talk for forever.
Oh, we could. We definitely could. Obviously, open invite. If you ever want to come back on, please let me know.
I would love to. I would be honored. I can yell about so many things.
Oh, man, so can I. But Eli, where can people find you on the internet?
I am just about everywhere. You can find me under NormanBatesJr. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, surprisingly. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Discord. I'm literally everywhere. TikTok. I make a lot of TikToks. I make unique content across all platforms. I make retro gaming content. I also make a lot of Silent Hill and horror game content. I film some days at the store. I've also done repair work. So there's a lot of interesting content out there. You can find me there. I love talking to people, so don't be afraid to shoot me a message. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. This has been such an absolute honor. I've had the best time ever.
Yeah, I can't confirm that they do like talking to people because one day I was like, I cannot tell you how many times I have so many guests on this show just because I found them on Twitter, Instagram, or wherever. Mm-hmm. And I just thought to myself and said, F it. If they answer, cool. If they don't, no worries. No harm, no foul. I completely understand. And I've even gotten some messages back. It's like, hey, I would love to, but reasons at the moment. And it's like, that is totally fine. So yeah, I think once again, Eli, thank you again so much for coming on. And I'm just upset that I haven't watched your stream because every time you stream, I'm at work.
You're fine. It happens. I always say real life comes before stream. I'm gracing you with my presence now. So that's good enough, right?
How many times have we rescheduled this? And I'm not
I know.
That's not a dig on you. That is not a dig on you.
It's like ping pong. It's like, oh, let's do this week. Okay, actually, I can't do this because of reasons. Okay, let's do this week. Actually, I can't do it because of reasons. And I was like really nervous. I was like watching the clock change. And I was like, I feel like one of us is going to say something came up. But we made it and we're here.
We did. I mean, because the third time we had to reschedule, I felt bad because my brother came over and it was around his birthday. I really needed to see him. So
again,
I was like,
real life comes first.
Yeah,
like always important.
Yeah, even last weekend was a big weekend for me because I had a double day of recording for my Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It was It was a huge thing, but yeah, so it worked. You're here. Hallelujah. We got this. I'd love to have you back. This has been a great conversation. Once again, if you ever come to Southern California, just hit me up. I'll take you to Frankenstein's. We will make some content there. And of course, you can follow me at BenMagnet27, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and now on Threads as of this recording. I just jumped over the bandwagon. So
I'm kind of there, but I'm too scared to use it. But everybody, please check out Ben. He's been the coolest host ever.
Oh, thank you so much. That warms my heart. And of course, besides following me on social media, you can find me writing for Fusion Gaming Magazine, Old School Gamer Magazine, GoNintendo.com, co-hosting the FakeNerd podcast with my bros, Sparks, Ryan, and Brandon. You can find me playing Mary Frankenstein on D and Dark. New episodes are coming out Wednesdays. And once again, Eli, it has truly been an amazing time. I am so thankful that we were able to talk. I'd love to have you on again. Maybe after I beat, this gorgeous thing.
Yes.
Yeah, because actually, because I've had this game for a long time. I have not played it yet, and this is now my most expensive game in my collection, and I will not sell it because I've never played it yet.
You have to beat it. You have to play it.
I do, and this is like people keep telling me that this is like the best version of it too, and
it is.
And the fact that I got the one with the poster, I didn't even know there was a poster.
So sick. I don't think I actually did either, so I'm like amazed. I learned something new today too.
Yeah, and then I was like, hey, $75. And they're like, what? you spent how much? I was like, yeah, I won an eBay bid. This is like the one time an eBay bid worked. And I'm just like, yay. But yeah, everyone go follow Eli. They are awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So until next time, unpause.